The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. The road leading to the Holloway family's new home was slick and shining under the dying light. The wipers squealed across the windshield as Oliver gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. Beside him, his wife Marissa was half-turned toward the back seat, coaxing their 8-year-old son Nathan to look out the window and see the big adventure we're starting. Nathan didn't respond. He sat with his knees pulled up, chin resting on them, watching the raindrops race each other down the glass. His dark hair stuck to his forehead. He didn't like the new house. He hadn't even seen it yet, but something in his bones told him it wasn't a good place. They pulled into the driveway just as dusk settled. The Victorian house rose before them like a shadow caught in mid-step. Its wooden siding, once painted white, had been weathered to a dull gray. Tall windows reflected nothing but darkness. On the top floor, one curtain swayed slightly, though every door and window had been locked for years, according to the realtor. Marissa told herself it was the draft. Nathan, however, stared at that window until Oliver barked for him to help carry a box inside. The inside smelled faintly of old paper and damp earth. Their footsteps echoed. The furniture from the previous owners was gone, leaving only dust rings on the hardwood floor. Nathan wandered toward the staircase without a word, running his small fingers over the banister. "Don't go up there yet," Marissa called, but her voice didn't carry the weight she intended. Something about the house made her keep her tone soft, as though it was listening. By nightfall, the boxes were piled in the corners of their assigned rooms. Nathan's new bedroom was the one he had pointed to on the floor plan weeks earlier. Marissa had thought it was sweet that he'd chosen it himself, though now she wondered why he had fixated on the smallest, darkest room upstairs. She tucked him in, kissing his hair, and left the door cracked so the hallway light could reach him. It was barely an hour later when she heard him whispering. At first, she thought he was talking in his sleep. But as she passed his doorway on her way to the bathroom, she saw his eyes wide open, fixed on the shadow beneath his bed. She paused, heartbeat quickening. "Who are you talking to, Nate?" she asked. He didn't look at her. "She doesn't like you listening." The words were so calm they unsettled her more than a scream would have. "There's no one there," she said, forcing a smile, and bent to lift the bed skirt. Darkness. Just the wooden floor and the wall. Nathan rolled away from her, and after a long silence, she left the room. The next morning, Oliver complained of hearing footsteps in the hallway during the night. Heavy ones, too heavy to be Nathan's. Marissa said she hadn't heard a thing, though she had just soft creaks moving back and forth, stopping outside their door. She'd been too afraid to look. By the third night, Nathan refused to sleep in his bed. He dragged his blanket into the corner and curled up there, muttering that it was safer. Marissa tried to reassure him, but his eyes dark glassy, unblinking made her voice falter. "She said if I sleep on the bed again, she'll take me," he whispered. "She lives under there. She's waiting." They considered calling a child psychologist, but Oliver didn't like the idea of spending money when they'd just bought the house. Instead, he tried to show Nathan there was nothing under the bed. He flipped the mattress, shone a flashlight under the frame. Nothing. Nathan didn't look convinced. That night, Oliver thought he dreamed of. Waking to find their bedroom door open, the hallway light flickering. Standing at the foot of the bed was a figure, small and hunched, its long hair dripping onto the floor. Its face was hidden, but he could hear breathing wet, gurgling breaths. The figure stepped closer, and just before it reached the mattress, he woke with his heart pounding. The following week, Marissa began to notice small changes in Nathan. He spoke less, ate less. Sometimes she'd find him standing in front of a wall, pressing his ear to it as if listening. She asked him what he heard, and he said, "She tells me stories." When Marissa asked what kind of stories, he only smiled. One rainy evening, she heard a thud upstairs while she was making dinner. She rushed up to find Nathan sitting in the middle of his bedroom floor, the bed frame tipped over, the mattress against the wall. His fingernails were broken, bleeding. "She tried to pull me in," he said matter-of-factly. "I had to make it so she couldn't hide." They moved him into the guest room that night, but his whispers continued. He said she could still find him, but she had other ways. Marissa began waking at exactly 3:11 every morning. No sound woke her. Her eyes would just snap open, and she'd feel it's something standing in the hallway, just outside the door. Unable to stand it. She pulled the covers down and stared at the crack under the door. 2 shadows. one long and still, the other twitching slightly, like it was swaying on its hands and knees. Oliver didn't believe her until the night he found the basement door open at 3:11. He swore he'd locked it. The air down there was colder than outside. On the far wall, etched into the wood, were hundreds of tiny scratches, like fingernails dragged repeatedly over the same spot. In the center, someone had carved a crude drawing of a bed, and beneath it, a dark arched shape. After that, Oliver insisted they keep Nathan in their room at night, but Nathan hated it. He said she didn't like being ignored. He said she'd start making them listen. The house grew heavier, doors wouldn't stay shut. The smell of damp earth thickened, especially in the upstairs hallway. One night, Marissa woke to the sound of Oliver choking beside her. She turned to see him clutching at his throat, eyes bulging. When she flicked on the lamp, there was nothing there but his neck bore long red scratches. They tried to leave. Bags packed, car loaded. But when Oliver turned the key, the engine only coughed and died. The air in the car grew icy. Nathan, sitting in the back seat, turned and looked at the house. "She's in there," he said, "but she can be anywhere." That night, they didn't sleep. Around 3:11, the sound of something crawling came from the attic. Slow, deliberate. The ceiling creaked above their heads, dust falling onto the bed. Then the sound stopped, replaced by a low, wet breathing just beyond the footboard. They didn't dare move. Hours later, when light finally seeped through the curtains, they found faint, muddy handprints along the foot of the bed. Small, child-sized, but with too many fingers. Marissa reached a breaking point. She demanded answers from the realtor, who reluctantly told her the story. A girl had lived in the house decades earlier. She'd been kept locked in her room by her parents, who believed she was ill in ways that could spread. One night, the parents went into her room and never came out. The neighbors heard the screams. When police arrived, the room was empty, except for the bed and a large hole under it leading into the earth. They never found the girl. The house had been sold cheap ever since. Marissa didn't tell Oliver the full story, afraid it would make him lose hope. But Nathan knew. He started spending hours under blankets, whispering. When she tried to pull him out, he resisted with surprising strength. One night, she woke to find him gone from the bed beside her. Panic flared, and she searched every room before finally dropping to her knees and peering under the guest bed. Two pale hands rested there in the darkness. One was Nathan's. The other was smaller, with nails like broken glass. Both were gripping each other tightly. Marissa screamed and yanked him out, but he was limp, his eyes glassy. "She wants to show me where she lives," he said. "She says I can stay if you don't want me." They locked every bed frame in the house and the garage, made Nathan sleep on a mattress on the floor. For a few nights, it was quiet. Then came the scratching from inside the walls. At first it was faint. Then it grew louder, faster, until it seemed to come from every surface. One night, the scratching stopped abruptly, replaced by a voice, a whisper that seeped from every corner of the room. "Let him come." Oliver shouted for it to leave them alone, and the house shook. The lights went out. In the dark, something rushed toward them on all fours. Marissa felt cold fingers brush her ankle. When the lights came back, Nathan was gone. They found him in the basement, standing in front of the wall with the carved bed. He was humming. The dirt beneath him was disturbed, as though something had recently crawled out. His clothes were wet. His skin was cold. When they asked him where he'd been, he only said, "Underneath." In the weeks that followed, Nathan was never quite the same, smiled at odd times. He whispered when he thought they weren't listening. They moved to a new house, desperate to leave it behind. But at night, they sometimes heard faint scratching from beneath his bed. And every morning at 3:11, Marissa would wake without knowing why, her eyes drawn to the shadow under the mattress. One night, weeks after the move, she saw a pale hand slip out from under there and gently pat Nathan's hair before retreating into the dark. And Nathan smiled in his sleep.